Welcome to today's episode of the Group X podcast. I'm your host, Tony Zanato. Today, I'll be talking to Bevan James Eyles, fitness leader, author, and speaker. I will make you passionate about exercise. Bevan shares with us the highs and lows of life within the fitness industry and how to go from being unmotivated, unfit, and lost to having energy, being fit, healthy, and loving exercise. So grab your favourite beverage, sit back, and enjoy this episode. Bevan, welcome to the Group X podcast, mate. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me on,
mate. I'm grateful that you guys have all said yes when I've asked. So I know that my listeners will be impressed and happy, but also very engaged to find out a little bit more about you, mate. So, can you tell us, how did you get into the fitness industry? Where does your journey start for you?
So the real story is I was a total loser, druggy, alky, bad path in life. Then I had a really bad LSD experience one night. And in that moment, I was kind of like, man, I need to change my life, and it was, I was the real hit the bottom. I need to get out of this place. And at that time, I was a failure. Like I left school at 15 with no qualifications. And the thing I often joke about is that I wasn't the intelligent kid who didn't apply themselves. I was actually a thick shit. I really was. I couldn't read. I couldn't write. I was a real failure. And so, but the only thing I'd ever really been good at was sport. I was a pretty good sporty kid. No, I wasn't a great sporty kid, but I'd make local rep teams, but I'd never be a national representative, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But that was the kind of thing that I had been good at. And when I was a druggie, I started playing guitar. And guitar was the first thing in life that I'd actually started at, worked hard at, and got okay at. And so when I had my really bad drug experience, and I thought I need to change my life, basically I went cold turkey on drugs and alcohol pretty much the next week. And I remember thinking, if you want to be good at something, just practice, because that's what I did with guitar. And so I thought, well, I'm always liked exercise, and I'd fallen away from exercise at this moment. I was putting on weight. I was, I wasn't massive, but you know what I mean? I was just in a really unhealthy place with all aspects of my life. And so I thought, well, I'll practice getting good at exercise again. So I remember my mum, and at first this was just at home. So my mum had some equipment that she'd never used. There was this thing called a power rider. I don't know if you remember the power rider. It literally looked like you were humping. It's this machine that you were humping, and I would be humping this thing for 40 minutes a day. And then they had some pretty basic weights. And so I started doing some weights. And after a while, the home-based equipment just got pretty limited. And I joined. Here's the irony: was I was going to join the local gym where all my mates went to, which was kind of a kind of a sporty bodybuilding kind of gym. Yep. And I was real keen to join it because that's where my mates went. But my girlfriend at the time went to Les Mills and she never used her membership. And so I thought to myself, I'll just take her memberships because basically I'm a tight ass. Yep. So, but it's a real sliding doors moment in my life, because by taking on that membership, it changes my life. Yeah. So I joined the gym. I started studying. I started developing myself. And I was going to go to university, and I thought I'd started doing classes at the gym, and I loved doing classes. And then I was going to university, and I thought, well, it could be a really cool part-time job to go when I go to university. So I approached the manager and said, can I do one of these modules? And fortunately for me, there was a body attack module on this weekend, or 2 weekends later. And that's kind of how it started, really. Yeah.
Mate, thank you for sharing that. That's a very insightful story into your beginnings, that you've turned your life around in a massive way, mate. That's huge. Thank you, because it's vulnerable, but it's nice to know that something amazing has come from this.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I was speaking to someone about this the other day. Is that when you I was such a low-skilled, vulnerable young man. I really had no skills at all. That's not true. I've always been a good people person. Yep. So as a kid doing the paper run, I'd take an hour to do a half an hour job because I talk to everybody, Yep. And I was the kid who got the most tips at Christmas time. So I've always had a good people skills. Yeah. But outside of that, I really had nothing going for me. And I was very lucky that once I gave up the drugs and the alcohol, I basically removed myself from that life.
Yeah.
And luckily, the gym life became my new life.
Yes.
And it was, so people asked me, was it hard to give up drugs and alcohol? And to be honest, it really wasn't for me.
Yep.
But it was partly because, and I didn't do this consciously, it was more of a subconscious thing. But I just went to a different world, and that world didn't do those things.
Yeah.
So, the people I was now surrounding myself with were people who were, healthy and fit, were trying to get better in life. And so it became a really attractive place in life. And what also happened was you just start developing.
Yeah.
And so this kind of sense of self-belief, I was like, at my worst, one of my traits of insecurity was I became a real bad stutterer. So I was like to the point where it was actually, I couldn't really hold a conversation. It was like that bad.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you go from a place where you're so lacking in confidence to then you're growing, you're developing. And luckily for me, I was kind of just naturally good at this fitness thing.
Yep.
So with work ethic and natural character traits, I was able to kind of grow really quickly in a very short period of time. So I went from this kind of, I often tell people, if you'd met me a year before I started teaching fitness, nobody in the world would listen to me because I had no respect from the world. Yep. Kind of 2 years later, everyone listened to me because I was good at the thing that people were bad at. And so it just became this really fulfilling experience.
I don't mean this to sound bad when I say this. I'm grateful that you went through the experience and hit rock bottom in order for you to find fitness and turn your life around and do that stuff. That's the amount of lives that you have touched because of the decision, and you said that sliding door moment that you made is phenomenal. That it could have been complete opposite. It could have turned to absolute garbage and shit, and downhill spiral, out of control completely.
Yeah, and I have friends from that time who have been in jail for 20 years. Like, I was on the wrong path. Yeah. And it's just amazing. One moment, eh? Yeah. It's quite fascinating.
That's awesome. So Body Attack was the first module then you did, was the first.
Yeah, and here's the thing for all you instructors, I failed. So, because back in the day, what they used to do is do modules over 2 weekends. Yes. I don't know, you were around in those days?
Yes.
So you do initial module, you'd be 2 days on that, and then you do a third day, 6 weeks later.
Yep.
And my first module, and I think this was the second or third ever Body Attack module. So I was pretty early on in the piece.
Yeah.
And Brett Fairweather took it. And for those who remember, Brett was the choreographer before Lisa. And in New Zealand, Brett Fairweather was a household name. Yep. Like, he was like a sports star. He was like, because in New Zealand back in the day, if you won anything as a world championship, you got massive media. Yep. And he won the world aerobics champ. So Brett Fairweather was literally a household name. Everyone in New Zealand knew who Brett Fairweather was. Yep. So I turn up to my first module and it's Brett Fairweather taking the module. Nice. And I'm like, and I just was in awe the whole module, you know, it was absolutely I get goosebumps thinking about it. And I remember, I knew I was going to struggle, but I got up and did my presentation and I thought, you've just got to give it everything. Yeah. You got to give it a shot. And I remember I said the F word in it. I remember I said the F word and they went, oh shit. And then I just, and so, so you didn't, the first 2 days you didn't pass or fail. You just kind of waited for the next two. Yep. And then I went to Dunedin and I failed that. But luckily I just had a brilliant young group fitness manager who saw my potential. And while I failed that module, he was like, don't worry, I'm going to guide you along till you become an instructor. And I actually failed my first module. So
How was module training for you? Never having done anything like that before, I'm assuming, never having done anything like that before.
Yeah.
How was your experience? Can you give us a little bit of info on how that was for you as a personal experience?
It's life-changing, and I still think for a lot of people it is, to be a kid who was kind of coming from nothing. Yep. And you got to remember, I always think that we forget how our members see us. Yeah. We forget, and I always think there's a responsibility to that, because I think anyone gets on stage suddenly gets more respect.
Yep.
And we get on stage and we do something that most people struggle at. So, and I remember thinking, there's that song by Marilyn Manson, that the beautiful people, and I remember thinking all the instructors were just the beautiful people. Yeah. And so, and then you'd go on to this module and you're getting this opportunity to become one of those people. Yep. And at the same time, it's stretching you and challenging you in really massive ways. And but it was just such a stimulating experience. And I was obsessed, because you've got to remember, I'm this kid who kind of came from nothing, and here's this one opportunity. At that moment, I just thought, I've got this one opportunity to make it in life. And I remember I talked to every member at my gym, and I said, who was the best instructors ever? And there's kind of three names. There's a guy called Sonny, who basically was just a real fun guy. There was a guy it was a lady called Anthea, and in Christchurch, she was a legend. It's like Anthea, people would ring the gym if they were going to miss her class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and not the gym would get 30 calls a night.
Yep.
Like, it wasn't just, she was, when they did the modules, when they designed the modules, they probably basically copied what she was doing around connection.
Yep.
You know, she was the ultimate connector. And then the other name, because Glenn Ostergaard came from Christchurch. Glenn Ostergaard, for technique and his just ability to teach amazingly. Yep. And I said, well, what made them great? And then I remember someone said to me, Glenn was just always practicing. Yep. Glenn, you know, like he'd be in front of me doing mirror work, and he'd left Christchurch before I came on board. So I did my module, and I spent 5 hours a day practicing for probably six months of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, every day of the week, in front of the mirror, just practice. I'd film my class every week. I was just obsessed.
Had you done attack classes before module training?
Yeah.
So you had participated.
I started the gym for weight training for sport.
Yep.
And then I started doing circuits, because that was kind of comparable to rugby league, which I was playing. Yep. And then one of my mates doing circuits said to me, oh, you should try body attack. And back in those days, nowadays there's so many cardio options.
Yes.
You know, we've got so many options. Back in those days, the only real cardio option was body attack. Yeah. And I remember just loving it. And it got to the point where our gym was designed, you had to walk past a group fitness studio to do weights. And it got to the point where I couldn't walk past a body attack class, even if I was meant to doing weights. Like I just loved body attack so much. Yeah. You know, and so I just became obsessed about how do I become a great instructor.
Awesome. So where can you remember your first class you taught?
Yeah, you know the funny thing. So Maureen Baker, do you know Maureen Baker?
Yes.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Maureen Baker's been a legend in the game, and she's basically one of who creates all the education, really. And she was our manager at the time. So she was my manager for like the first month, and then this new manager came on board, and she came and watched my first class. And
no pressure.
Like, it's not good. It's not good, you know. And she brings me so I'm at university, and this is the old days. So somehow I got a message at university to call Maureen Baker, and I had to call her from like a, you know, go to sell, put their money in and ring. Yeah,
the old payphone.
And Maureen Baker knows she's changed, but back in those days she was harsh. Yep. So I go, hey Maureen, it's Bevan here, and she goes, Bevan, do you really think you should be an instructor? And I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
You know? Yeah. And I was like, oh, please, Maureen, no, yes, I'll work hard at it, blah, blah, blah. And so, and her thing was, she goes to me, Bevan, they're not awesome in the warm-up, you know, because I was just so enthusiastic. Yep. The thing I always had going for me was I was always extremely fit, and I always had a lot of energy. Yep. And when I first started, I was just like this ball of energy right from the moment I started the class. I had no contrast at all. So, so my first part of my journey, I was just lucky. While Maureen had doubted me in the first moment, she was actually really important for my opportunities and what happened moving forward. But I just had some really good people. I was very lucky because I had people who believed in me and also knew how to guide me. Because I had keenness. I was going to do the work, but I also had people who were able to point me in the right direction. Okay, well, here's where you need to put your focus. And they were really important, and maybe some of the biggest mentors in my life.
Yeah. So that first class, did it go well for you? Or with the feedback and everything, but can you remember the people in front of you? Did you land it? Did you connect? Was it all?
I'm pretty positive, so I probably thought I went okay. The thing I always think as a new instructor, your job is to build a class. And I got given a class at a pretty bad time slot, and it was pretty much dying. And then within 2 months, I got it up. I like quadrupled the class.
Awesome.
And what happens there is you get better opportunities. So then there was an old instructor who had the best time slot at the gym, but he was kind of a bit stale. So within a year, I had the best time slot at the gym. You know, and I just, you know, if you build a class, you're going to get opportunity. And luckily for me,
you got to earn your stripes.
Yeah,
you've got to get in the.
And you're going to get the crap class at the beginning. Yes. You're going to get the worst time slot. But if you can win that class, you know, that's going to be key for you. And I was lucky. And the thing I had at the start was great people skills. And while I wasn't a great instructor, I always knew how to kill the peak moment. So people always left my workout going, man, that was an awesome workout. They might have thought it was crap to that moment. But at least they left on a high.
That's an art form as well in itself. That's to be able to peak at the right moment, and that sounds really bad when I say that, but you're able to you not peak too early, to make sure that you deliver when you need to deliver, so that, as you're saying, they walk away from that experience going, yeah, that's brilliant, I can't wait to come back.
This is the Group X podcast.
I remember actually one of my mentors said to me, because at first I didn't want to look like I was working hard, like I wanted to have energy.
Yep.
And one of my mentors said to me, Bevan, they don't want to see that you find it easy.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, so
is that true?
Yeah. You know, he said, you've got to go to the place where you're pushing that hard.
Yeah.
But B, you've got to show that side of yourself when you go there as well.
Yeah.
You know, and I know on DVDs, I've got feedback. People say they love that when I do a peak track, they see me bending over, just gasping for air.
Yep.
You know, because it's real.
Yeah.
You know, whereas if it gets, you know, there's a level of authenticity that comes with that moment, isn't there?
If you get to that top and they're peaking, but you've still got more to go, it's like, hang on a second. Yeah. Wow. So how did the opportunity? I'll reverse that.
Yep.
From teaching, what was the next evolution for you from teaching attack? What sort of happened next in your?
So I started picking up other programs, and then I actually taught RPM first, because RPM just got introduced.
Yep.
And they just needed lots of instructors. So I taught RPM for a few months. And then luckily for me, this new manager just wanted to make some stars. So he was really good at pushing me for the next level to become a trainer. So I was basically a trainer within probably 18 months of starting.
Yep.
And at the time, nowadays it may happen faster, but at the time that was kind of unheard of.
Yes.
And so I became a trainer, and then I had some really lucky moments, because what happened was I became a trainer. I started training for I've been teaching for about 2 years, and then they brought out AIM. And when they first brought out AIM, they decided they were going to do a massive AIM in Portugal. And they did an AIM. I think it was actually a bit of a disaster, because they tried to do an AIM to like 2,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And you know, I don't know if the experience around the module would have been that great, because it was just kind of a bit too big.
Yeah.
But for that reason, they just needed lots of people who were kind of helpers on AIM.
Yeah.
And so what they did is they shouted all the New Zealand trainer team to go to Portugal to be the helpers. So I didn't really present anything at the AIM. I was just kind of going around helping out the group stuff.
Yeah.
Which for a kid who was a drop kick, who 2 years earlier was a total drop kick, this was like, oh my God, like I'd never been overseas. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. And then luckily for me in that moment, Brett Fairweather, who was, the body attack choreographer, when he was in Portugal, decided to retire. So at that moment, Brett retires, and I'm in the right place at the right time. And everyone sees me participating, and I think I may have taught some attack classes while I was there. And they were just looking for the next person to kind of replace Brett.
Yep.
And so I was just right time, right opportunity, really. And
awesome.
Then, and so then I got asked to be on the DVD, and it was a pretty cool moment, because back in those days, nowadays they use so many people, but back in those days, and you probably remember this, that they literally had 3 people on every DVD.
Yes.
It was the same 3 people every time. And so, the idea of you getting on a DVD was just unheard of. And even though I aspired to it, you didn't really see the opportunity.
Yep.
So I got asked to do my first DVD, and it was pretty special as well.
What release was that?
So Body Attack 39.
Wow. Early stuff.
Yeah. And it was really interesting thinking back, because back in those days, literally I turn up, they give you a choro, you practice maybe 5 hours before it with the crew, and you're really just practicing your finishes and your starts.
Yep.
No feedback at all. Like
wow.
No feedback. It was literally get up and do your thing. I may have got like 1 feedback session. And funnily, I did my first DVD, and I didn't realize I did this when I taught, but I must have always gone when I was teaching, and I never knew it. And on the first DVD, it's actually really terrible, because you hear me making this weird sound. Yeah. So I did that DVD, and then Lisa became the choreographer. So then Lisa came on board, and Donna retired, and then Mark hung around for a lot longer. So then it was kind of Lisa, Mark, and I for a while, and then Lisa started to make the team a bigger thing.
Yep.
And then when Lisa came on, it became a bit more professional and feedback. But yeah, my first DVD was literally go up, rock up, do your thing, and see you later.
Wow, because my understanding is filming back then is so different to what filming is these days.
Oh yeah, today
like
it's
completely
massive production.
Yeah.
And today you're not even teaching to classes a lot of the time, so
yes.
it's a different skill set.
Yeah.
And it's a skill that I actually think most Les Mills instructors could achieve.
Yep.
But it is a different thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, literally, I think I even filmed when we may have still only had one camera.
Yeah.
I remember when they added the side
Wow.
camera, and that was a big thing,
Yeah.
so.
I remember some
so
of
it
the
was a
early
lot.
stuff that I remember seeing. The sign on stage was in reverse.
Oh, yeah, that's right,
And what you guys were wearing was in reverse. And I don't know whether it is just, I don't think the clothing was or the signing was. It was just they'd reversed it on film for the instructors to learn in that way. But it was just
and when that was what was really funny, because when I came on, aerobics was still an important part of body attack.
Yep.
Because body attack really came because in the 90s, like Glenn, Mark New, all these guys, they did aerobics champs.
Yes.
And aerobics champs in the 90s, people like us could do aerobics champs. It hadn't gone really high level skills.
Yes.
Whereas when it got to the late 90s, it became real gymnastics based, and it kind of killed the sport because everyday people couldn't do it.
Yep.
So when I came along, like when I first started people instructing, people said, "Are you going to do champs?" And I was thinking, "Oh, maybe I should, because that's what everyone does."
Yeah.
And I didn't end up doing it. But like, if you look at my first body attack outfit, we looked like aerobics champs. And then Lisa came along and she was like, "No, we want to look sporty."
Yeah.
So you look, I think body attack 39, I'm literally wearing sparkles and, like all the rest of it. And it wasn't good, I tell you. And for maybe the first 3 releases were like aerobics champs. And then Lisa comes on and we start to look more sporty.
Yeah.
And, that kind of aerobic champs base kind of died after that moment.
Yeah. Filming back then to filming today, we just touched on it briefly. Filming back then, you're in front of a class. These days, you're not. In most cases, you're not in front of a class. There's a group of people, but it's not a huge class. From other guests that I've chatted to, filming is more. When you're teaching and filming today, it's more coaching to one person, rather than that group of people, because the message you've got to get across is to that one instructor, is to that one home user. The end product is quite different to what it was when it was just an education release, and you guys were able to have a whole lot of fun. Not saying they don't have fun these days, because that's not true, but that experience being quite different. Have you? And I should probably know this before I ask this question, but have you done a recent filming release?
Yeah,
since
I've done a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've done 4 of the ones without a class.
Okay. How is that for you compared to what you're used to doing?
Yeah, so I'll take you back to when I first started, because when I first started, it was not much feedback. And so I just rocked up and did my thing.
Yep.
And then it became almost too much feedback. So there's a period where I was probably pretty early on where I wasn't actually enjoying filming. Because the thing people need to remember is a lot of people think they can be on filming. Like every instructor that wants to be on filming, every instructor probably thinks they can be on filming.
Yep.
But the thing you got to remember when you're on filming is you're doing a job. You're doing a job that's representing a company at the highest level. And when you first start, you can often lose yourself. You've probably seen it. You've probably seen instructors in your local area you see them in the class and they just blast it out of the water. Yep. And then you see them on film and you're like, "Oh, I didn't quite nail it."
Yep.
And you're like, "What's happened there?" And it's a bit of a skill to learn how to do the job that Les Mills wants you to do at the highest level, that represents the company at the highest level, and keep a bit of you in there.
Yeah.
And at first it was all me without much Les Mills. Yep. And then it went through this period where it was too much feedback and I wasn't enjoying, because where am I? And then I learned that balance. Yes. And it didn't take long, but after a while I learned, okay, here's where I need to be a great coach, but here's where I do the bit that Bevan was doing in his everyday classes. Yep. And so that was kind of my journey. And then I think the first filming we did on a roof somewhere in Auckland. And actually it was bizarre, because was the first time we did it without a class. And the way we recorded it, they gave us these little earpieces that news readers would use so their producers could talk to them. Yep. Well, first of all, they weren't designed for music. So there was no music. There was no one else around us could hear anything. Like the film crew couldn't hear the music. It was basically silent other than what we heard in our ears.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and there was no bass. So it was tinny. So for those who watched the body attack filming, I think it's like 109 or 108, whatever it is. With George, Lisa and I are on the hilltop on the roof. Like literally, we couldn't hear anything. Like, and there was one track where both of George's ears fell. He was shadowing. Both of his ears fell out. And he's just following my movement. He did brilliantly. Yeah. So that was a bit odd. But then you kind of, you know what? It's actually not that hard. Yep. You just got to figure out your energy management, because your script's going to be great. Yeah. So you just got to figure out how to deliver the energy journey. Yeah. When there's no one in the room. And And if anything, like I think as someone who's been on filming for a long time, I've always tried to keep getting better.
Yep.
And I'm known for peaks. So, people always talk to me, my peak tracks are really the thing probably that I'm best known for. My peak tracks, people always say my peak tracks, and it's the fact that they can be fun. But the 8 that I taught on, maybe it was at 116 or 117, I think it's the best I've ever taught.
Yep.
And the reason is the contrast I showed was for the song was a real journey.
Yeah.
And that was in front of no one. And so it's just understanding that I think your scripts you can just practice,
Yep.
but understanding the energy journey is probably the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because in a real class, you get the energy journey.
Yes.
Because the people
you're
can
feeding off
help
each
you
other.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got a favourite release?
100.
Yep.
Yeah. And the reason is, I got to be on the filming for 100. And in my career, getting to 100 was always the goal, to be on filming.
Yep.
And hopefully being on the filming, because I knew it was going to be overseas, and you don't really know.
Yep.
And it was just the most amazing experience you could ever hope for. It was, and I've talked about this in the past, but Lisa killed it. The music was perfect, choreography was perfect. The way she got a next generation and an old generation on the team.
Yep.
Being in Amsterdam, we probably had 2,000 or 3,000 people in the room. But the best part of it, like teaching was phenomenal. But the best part was when you weren't teaching, you were on the floor. And you went on the floor and you're in a room of, I'm going to go thinking about it, 2,000 people who just loved body attack.
Yeah.
And I remember doing, I can't remember what track I wasn't on the stage for, but I was doing some track. And I'm like, it just took me back to that kid who walked into the body attack room and loved doing the class.
Yep.
And like,
That's awesome.
I actually think Lisa always does a great job. I tend to love the new stuff all the time, but Body Attack 100, nothing will be that for me.
Yep. No.
Yeah.
The one that was done in Sydney at Fox Studios.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember.
There was a few after. There's about 108 or so.
I think so. Yeah.
Right.
So Rach, my wife, was part of the team for that lineup, and to see her up there, but be in that room and experience that energy of all of that was just out of this world. Something I've never experienced. I mean, we've had the big Filex conventions here in Sydney, or we had in the past, and they were always huge. But to be part of that filming and see that whole process go down, and that was just phenomenal. But also knowing from her experience as well, as you're saying, that lead up to and the feedback process and everything that she went through and she was getting, as well as the whole team were during that time, is nice to know and understand that, because realistically, when a new instructor comes on board, all we see is the end product.
Yeah.
I think, cool, I want to do that. But the journey to go through that process to actually be there on the other side of the camera is huge.
I can't speak for other instructors, but when I'm doing filming, I live in Christchurch, so I go to Auckland, tend to go for a week. I will practice my tracks for, outside of the work we do as a team, for probably 20 to 30 hours. Like literally every minute, I'm not practicing with my team or eating or sleeping.
Yep.
I'm in front of my bloody mirror in my hotel room, just going over and over and over. Like that's what it takes.
Yeah.
It's
not
get
just,
to
that's and I'll touch on this for a second because it's a bugbear of mine, and if I don't, it'll frustrate me. Instructors that go to quarterly workshops get their music Saturday, Sunday, rock up 7 a.m. Monday and teach a class.
Yeah,
you can't.
No.
If you guys are out there and you have the trainer presenter team are getting your music beforehand and you're doing that much effort to go into it, why do instructors feel that they can jump in there on a Monday morning at 7 a.m. or 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever time it is, and be able to pull something off that's amazing? You need to give yourself time to learn it. You need to give yourself time.
You know what's really interesting about my career? Because when I was younger, I was kind of cheeky and fun and fit. And I was pretty slack. So I was kind of the guy who'd end up doing the same shit all the time. I was kind of, and I'd make lots of mistakes. And I could get away with it because I kind of, I just had these other traits that allowed me to get away with it. And people kind of knew this of me. The longer I've gone in my career, the more I practice.
Yep.
So I practice more now for even just like I did a pump this morning.
Yeah.
I did 30 minutes prep for it.
Love it.
I practice more now in my career than what I ever have in my career. And I respect the role more now. And the reason I do that is because I've done it I've been teaching for 23 years now. I never wanted to become the stale instructor. I never wanted to become the instructor who does the same shit all the time.
Yeah.
And so for me, and I never wanted to become the unfit instructor, because we see it. the people who are doing the same music they've done 10 years ago. They go, yeah, but my class loves the old stuff. Mate, your job's to make the class love the new stuff.
Yes.
Like make new memories.
Wow,
of new
isn't
stuff.
that so true? I need to record that and use that as a snippet for this one. It's so true.
Yeah.
Your job as an instructor is to make them love
the new stuff? Yeah.
This is the Group X podcast.
And I remember there was a instructor in my gym who wore all old clothes, and I was like, I'm never going to be that guy. And so I do an old school class once every 3 months.
Yep.
So I'm always current. I never do anything older than 10 releases. I always practice my choreo. I'm always fit. Even 23 years later, no one's going to walk in a room and go, oh, that's the old instructor at this gym.
Yeah.
And that's reflective in the successes of my class still.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's really important that we have to respect the opportunity we get.
Yeah. I like that. You've sort of touched on something there that I chatted to one of my guests, Nathan White, about recently, and with relation to not only doing the new tracks or your favourite tracks all the time, go back and do some of the older tracks, as in, stay within the 10 releases if that's what we need to do, but go back and teach some of the ones that weren't your favourite. Because there could be members in your class that absolutely loved that track, and even though it might not have gelled with you the first time you did it, go do it again.
Do you know what's really funny for me is now I only ever teach whole releases.
Yep.
I never mix, which is really fascinating. And none of my programs I teach. I can't remember the last time I mixed a release.
Wow.
Yeah. Like I just suppose that's because that's why I go through the process of learning.
Yeah. But in a space, I like that because that's how that release was designed.
Yeah.
It was designed to go from one
mixing.
to...
I get why people do it. It's just a habit I've got into. Always said, it's funny. Yeah.
I like that though. That's cool. That's again another unique thing as well. So what sort of preparation do you do prior to filming? Now when I say that, I mean, I know you went through, you do your you go through your tracking, you do that kind of stuff. Is there anything else that you do that would be out of the ordinary or that you can share with us?
So I think one thing that I'm very lucky in is that Lisa's a legend. Because Lisa makes it easy for us to do a great job. Now, I don't know other choreographers, but I know some choreographers who literally you'll turn up in Auckland and you'll get your choreography then. Yep. Whereas if I'm filming, I would have had the music. The choreography is always shifting. So Lisa loves lots of feedback. Like Lisa likes to get a team around her, and she'll get 5 or 6 people around her, and you'll be giving her feedback. So the choreography is never really set in stone until about 3 days before you're going to film. But the chunk of it's there.
Yeah.
So when I get to Auckland, my base work's done. So that 20, 30 hours I'm doing in Auckland is just practicing my script over and over again. So the first part of the process is Lisa will give you the music and you just get up and teach it and you just try and figure it out. And because one thing people probably don't understand is the filming classes we get kind of give us so much.
Yes.
And a good example of that is I remember when I first started filming and then I went overseas and I'd be teaching from people from other countries and I'd do my jokes. And it was like, what is the connection? Or they'd say your script.
Yes.
And so the thing about when you're on a film is you're the person who's designing the base that a lot of people will copy.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that because that's your job. So the process kind of starts about 2 months before filming. You'll get your release and I'll tend to just teach it a few times just to get my beats.
Yep.
And then Lisa will give us a framework of our key messages or the key kind of objectives we want to hit. And then I'll do a bit of a light script before I get to Auckland. But also Lisa likes to give you feedback as well. So I've kind of learned not to go on concrete. Yeah. And then you get to, and so I get to Auckland kind of about 80% there.
Yep.
And then from there, it's just that kind of process of shoring up the script. And then for me, I don't really do anything extra because I'm always extremely fit.
Yep.
Like I never lose fitness.
Yeah.
So I remember when I first did my first DVD, when Dan Cohen came on as a combat instructor, and he said to me, mate, you must train like a beast to be on Body Attack. And I was like, well, no, that's how I train. And so I've always been, so I've never done extra training and if anything, I probably need to put weight on. So I've never tried to lose weight for filming, if you know what I mean. So, so outside of just trying to do a good job on the filming, that's pretty much how I'd go about doing it.
What's going through your mind 5 or 10 minutes before filming?
Do you know what was really interesting? I'm a real process-driven person, so it's just going through process really, and then I'll still be practicing. Like I'll literally just be in the toilet in the bathroom practicing. So the more I practice, the better.
Yeah.
And really just a little bit about trusting yourself. Actually, a couple of things. Trust yourself because I've done the work. And make an experience that people will love. It's really important to me. And then the other thing is stay focused when you're shadowing.
Yep.
Because the funny thing is when you're filming, your own scripting is so, by then, because I've practiced so much, it kind of just comes out.
Yes.
But when you're shadowing, you can just have blank moments and then you make cock-ups that look really bad.
Yeah.
Like you might miss an option, or you just, now nowadays they can edit a lot of that stuff out, but sometimes they can't.
Yep.
And you've actually, when you're shadowing, you've got a really important job to A, don't cock up, B, add energy to the experience.
Yep.
So you've got to respond to Lisa if she has a laugh. You've got to look like you're having fun. You've got to go through the emotion. So you've also, and sometimes when you're shadowing, you can be thinking about your next track, or you can just be a bit absent-minded.
Yeah.
And that's when those mistakes can happen. So what I'm often thinking when I'm shadowing is, what's the next thing I need to focus on?
Yeah.
So you might be, okay, you've done that option. What's the next thing? And it's just that kind of being present of what you're going to do next. And then that's really, and then just connecting and having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that. Is there, this is a silly question that I got asked recently to ask you guys. Special pair of socks, special pair of undies, special something that you do that's like that, that's like the whole,
No.
I've got this.
Here's a funny one, but here is a funny one. I'm not allowed to drink Red Bull because years ago, because I don't really make mistakes. I'm lucky. It's pretty. They never have to stop because of my mistakes.
Yep.
It's pretty rare that would happen. And years ago, I drank a Red Bull before filming, and Liz goes, "What are you doing drinking that?" Oh, I just want to drink, and I made a mistake, and she was, "You're not allowed Red Bull ever again."
It gave you wings. Yep.
You get nervous, and my thing is when I get nervous, I get a dry mouth.
Yep.
So you're just about to start filming, and but once you start, you're fine.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Thank you for sharing all that. I really do appreciate hearing that kind of stuff. What roles have you got at the moment? Like you are still trainer and presenter?
So I'm kind of at the twilight. For me, getting to Body Tech 100 was always the goal. The fact I'm still kind of doing it when it's at like 118 or 117 is pretty cool. Yep. I trying to pull back from those things. So I haven't really taken a module in about 4 or 5 years. Yep. I get to travel a little bit nowadays, but I'm not chasing those things anymore. I think I've done my time. Yep. If they want me to do a job, I'll turn up and I'll do a great job. Yep. You got to get the next generation, and next generation are amazing. Yep. So I never wanted to be the guy who's gripping onto the past. Yep. And trying to push people down so they can't get opportunity. And at the moment, I still get used, but if I never get asked again, so be it. So at this stage, I'm pretty much just a guy who's teaching my classes at my local gym. Yep. Sometimes we'll present at workshops, sometimes travel around New Zealand and internationally, and sometimes there's filming.
Brilliant. Yeah. So I get that with that kind of stuff. Now, I understand you've written a book as well. Yeah. I'd love you to tell us a little bit about your book and about the lead up to that. What made you decide to write it and what you went through as well, if you can. Yeah. So outside of Les Mills, I have a running business. It's kind of group training, but groups, think like 200 people running kind of stuff. And years ago, when I started it was a half marathon group. And I always had this ambition of how do we take someone from doing nothing to doing a half marathon? And after a while, we realized we're attracting 2 types of people to our half marathon group. They're either runners who are trying to improve or fit people who are trying to run. So it might be like gym members who wanted to bring running into their life. And it wasn't really a product for beginners. So after about a few years of doing that product, we decided to do a beginner running group. And we did a 5K running. It's kind of like Couch to 5, but in group training. Yes. Yep. So way more successful than Couch to 5. We have like a 90% success rate. 90% of the people who join our group run 5K. Brilliant. Yeah, and we've just figured out what those people need. But also what I realized at that time was our industry is really bad at helping non-exercisers. Like we're actually pretty sucky at it. Yep. But the thing I often say is the fitness industry is really good at helping fit people. Yeah. So true. So true, isn't it? Yeah. We kill it with fit people. We've got so many good options, and they all work. What Les Mills provides. Let's look at Core. Core, I think, it's the only program I don't teach that I do. Yep. I think it's such a brilliant program. But I tell you what, if you're an unfit person, you're going to fail. Yeah. Like I remember I was over in Hawaii doing some commentary work at the Ironman Hawaii, and I was rooming with a guy who was an Ironman. This guy's a fit man. And I said, you should do this core workout, because they often triathletes just do too much from bike run and not much other stuff. And core is such a good workout.
and he couldn't even do it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm thinking, you know, and so our products are so good for fit people, but we suck for unfit people. And often what we do is we create a reinforcing experience that tells them they're always going to suck at exercise. And so when I started this 5K product, I realized that I didn't know how to help these people. Like at first, when we first tried it, we were actually just failing people. They weren't succeeding. And it was just a real eye-opener for me, because I was like, I actually don't know the problems and the hurdles these people face, and I don't know how to help them.
Yep. And
so I realized I need to spend a lot of time understanding what are their hurdles, what are their problems, and then how do I help them solve them. Now, luckily, we were persistent and we kind of learned what those were. And so we've been doing that product for about 10 years now. We've trained over 4,000 people to run 5Ks.
Wow.
It's been a really successful product. And so about 2 years ago, I wrote another book about 4 or 5 years ago. And I remember I got a negative feedback on it. And they said, the book's really good, but he's not really adding anything new. And I thought maybe it's a little bit harsh, but I did see the point.
Yep.
If you were, because I'm really into the behavior of fitness. So if you'd read a lot of behavior psychology and you read my book, you might go, you know, I've heard a lot of these concepts before. I tried to bring a fitness angle to it. So if you were, and I did get a lot of feedback on the book, but I could get why someone would say he hasn't brought something new to it. But at the same time, it kind of put a bit of a chink in my armor. I thought, you know what, it's a fair comment.
Yeah.
And then I looked out there and it's like, no one's actually writing books for people who are failing with exercise. Like if we look at the books in fitness, there's kind of 5 types of books. There's the story of me. So it's the Goggins. It's the, you know, it's I'm an inspiration, read my book.
Yep.
There's the how-tos. So how to be a runner, how to, so on, you know, there's diet books. So there's these kind of books that are out there, but no, there's no book out there that how do you help someone who's failing? So what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a book that was almost like a guideline. So someone picks it up, they're doing nothing, and it's actually a journey you're going to go through. And the way I've designed the book is basically these 10 journeys. And what I've thought about is, and it's not just getting exercise, how do I make you passionate? It's how do I make you a lifetime lover? Because when we look at lifetime lovers of exercise, they all share a few things. First of all, they have a movement they love. You know, like, you know, for me, it's body attack. For someone else, it's running. For someone else, it's fighting. For someone else, it's dancing. But the people who love exercise have a movement they love. They have leaders and community. So they get people who guide them on their journey. They have a community around them, around that movement. They go on growth journeys. So they might, you know, a runner might achieve a 5K run, a 10K run, a marathon. A cyclist might do a race. Someone in fighting might end up doing a fight. You know, they go on these journeys where they grow themselves as a person. They have an identity about exercise. Like you and I, we see ourselves as exercisers.
Yep.
If we don't exercise, we feel dissonance.
Yes.
You know, so what I was thinking about is I was thinking, what are all the people who have a lifetime love? Because the people who have a lifetime love, like you and I know we're going to exercise until the moment we can't. You know, that's going to be the rest of our life. So that's the framework I wanted to create. And then what's the framework that you hate someone who's doing nothing based on what I've learned? So there's basically 10 journeys these people need to go on. So the first journey is they need to learn how to fit it in their life. They need to learn how to basically fit in their life. So the first chapter is kind of a story, and then there's a challenge. They've got to do 12 exercise sessions in a month. But there's rules and strategies and mindsets. So the rules are the exercise has to seem stupidly easy.
Yep.
So I don't want you to go, I've got to do an hour run. It's going to seem really hard. I want you to go, I'm going to do a 15-minute walk. Now, that leads into the second rule. The second rule is you're not allowed to measure your physical results, because we're not trying to actually get you fitness period. We're trying to get you to learn how to fit putting exercise into your life. So the only thing you're allowed to measure is, did I start exercise? Then the third, like the next rules and strategies are, the only thing you measure is, did I get out the door, and what made me get out the door? Yeah. So at the end of that month, what they've done is they've learned the soft skills you need to know to start exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then what we do in the second journey, we get to explore different movements. Because, so in the next challenge is you've got to try like 6 different movements and try a diverse range. So try fighting, try dancing, try spin. We want you to find a movement, because at the end of that, you're going to go, shit, this is the one I like the most.
Yeah.
And if we can help you find, because everyone always says, what's the best movement for results? It's such a stupid question, because I might say running's the best movement for results, but if you hate running, you're not going to run.
You're not going to, yes. Yeah.
You know, whereas if you love dancing, you're going to move. So then from there, once you found the movement you love, then we get you to find your leaders in your community. Because if we can get belonging and leadership, so what we're trying to do is build this framework, and it's all based on each chapter has an experience you need to go through, and I give you how you're going to guide yourself through that experience. And at the end of the book, basically, it's kind of the whole book's kind of like a year. And at the end of the book, you've created this framework in your life where you've had these experiences where you'll be a lifetime lover of exercise.
That's part of my language here, but that's fucking brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. That just, we're chatting for maybe 6-8 minutes, whatever it was on that topic. Yeah. You've tapped into something that's huge. You've tapped into understanding how someone that's never trained or done anything before can learn to love.
Yeah.
Well done.
What's really interesting, and it's because it comes from I've helped thousands. Like go back to the guy who knew nothing about helping these people.
Yeah.
I've learned all the bit. So people who are unsuccessful, you've got to nurture them really carefully. And what they often do is they set themselves up to fail. So they try to do too much, too hard, too often. You would have seen this. People who join gyms are going to come 6 times a week and they've never done exercise before. What makes you think you can do 6 times a week? Yeah. You have no skill set or base behind you. Yep. So, but also we've got to think of the psychological journey. So in that first period, like one thing I learned when we started beginner runners was someone who's not good at exercise, they can have one bad day and they'll quit. They can be going 3 weeks doing really, really well and have one bad day and they quit. Yeah. And why is that? Because that bad day reinforces their big story. Yeah. Their big story that I always suck at exercise. Yeah. So in that first chapter, when they're doing that first session, I have a section on how to deal with a bad day. Because we know bad days are just a part of the game. Yeah. Yeah. When we have a bad day, we turn up tomorrow, you're going to be fine. Yeah. But they haven't learned that skill set yet. So when I'm teaching the lessons, there's this practical side of things they need to do, but I'm also teaching them how to psychologically manage each of the journeys they need to go on. And the book's gone really well. Like on Audible, it got to top 10 in the world for health and fitness. Like Tom Brady was number 9.
Congratulations.
It's gone gangbusters. So proves there's a need.
This is the Group X podcast.
So it's been really
weirdly
exciting.
enough, while we're talking about this now, my brain is thinking about how I could use that in other aspects of life, not just for getting into fitness, doing anything, anything at all.
Well, do you know what's really cool is one of my runners, she had bought the book, and her son, who was like a 20-year-old university student, he started reading, and he goes, "Mum, I can use all this stuff at university."
Yeah,
because it's just a growth framework, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
It's just a growth framework. Is okay, well, how do you set yourself up for success? How do you put this? Anyone who's successful in any area have created a framework around themselves that allow themselves to be successful. And that's what I'm trying to help these people do.
That's I honestly, I haven't bought the book, as I said, but I'm definitely going to get out there and read it.
Well, and I suppose, I know your target audience is fitness instructors.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of book that, that you'd want to recommend. But it is a kind of book where if you are, as you hear me say, fit people help fit people, if you are looking for a bit more insight into that journey, it is like I've had other fitness instructors say, Bev, it's been really insightful for me. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, mate, congratulations. I will, there'll be some links within the show and all that kind of stuff that I'll put down for people to be able to. The book is it's passionaboutexercise.com. So the other thing is on top of the book, there is a course that I sell, and the course is like, one thing I've learned, if you want to be successful in life, the best thing you can do is commit to a time where you create awareness in your life. Because think of that kid who was a dropkick. Well, what happened when I had that bad druggie experience is that basically I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, this is who you really are. It was before that moment, I didn't look at the mirror. And I'm a big believer in, to be a successful person, awareness tools should be a part of your every week of your life. And so for me, I like to think I'm a high functioning person. So for me, every Sunday morning, I spend 30 minutes. I call it my Bevan weekly meeting. I always get shit about it. But basically I plan out my whole week, and it's not just what I'm going to do for work. It's the whole self. It's my friends, it's my family, it's my piano playing, it's my work. I plan out my whole week. I write down my objectives for the week. So in each area, what am I trying to achieve in that area? Then every morning I spend 15 minutes reading that and planning out my day. And the reason this is important for me is that, and I'll tell you a really interesting story. So I never wake up 3 months later being a lost person. Because if I have a shit day,
I wake up the next day, I reflect, and I go, oh, you're shit yesterday, you need to sharpen up.
Yep.
Whereas I think what a lot of people do is they have a slow regression. You know, they eat a bit too much one day, they don't think about it, the next day that becomes a new habit, then that becomes a new norm, and then about 3 months later they put on weight and they go, I need to do something. Whereas if we stop and think often, and to me that's one of the best commitments you can make in your life, is a commitment to, I'm going to put 30 minutes aside. Like I'm pretty full on how I do it, but literally each week I'm going to put 30 minutes aside just to reflect and think about my next week. I guarantee you'll have a better life. Guarantee it. And here's a really good example. So I do that process every week of my life. I never really miss it. But a few months ago, it was a long weekend here in New Zealand. So, and we're having Monday off work. So I thought to myself, I won't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow because it's kind of like a Sunday. And turns out I didn't do it on the Sunday. Now, my next week, I was just a 70% version of myself. You know, I was just a bit shit.
Yep.
You know, didn't exercise. I would have exercised, but I wasn't as focused. I probably ate a bit worse. Spent a bit too much time on social media. Wasn't as productive. But the funny thing was, my one weakness in life is Coke Zero.
Yep.
I don't drink. I don't do drugs. But I could drink 10 liters Coke Zero a day. Like I'm a fiend.
Yep.
So, but I don't. I have these kind of strange rules that I have. So my rules are, on Friday and Saturday you can drink as much as you want, and then every other week you're not allowed to have it.
Yep.
And if you do have it, you could have a month off. Now,
oh wow,
I'm the guy
strict on yourself.
Yeah. But I'm the guy that if I do have it, I have a month off. So
okay.
So I don't do it. I Friday, Saturday, as much as I want. All the rest of the week, I don't do it. But the other thing is, I never even think about it.
Yeah.
The week I didn't do my weekly meeting, the idea of drinking Coke Zero appeared in my head 100 times a day. So not only was I a weaker version of myself, weaker thoughts came up in my head all the time. And it just showed me how valuable this basically, over a week, I've probably spent an hour of self-reflection upon myself.
Yeah.
That hour investment is massive. So with the book, what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a course that guides somebody through the journey where each week you have a weekly meeting where I basically it's an automated video, but it's like a 20-minute weekly meeting with me where I'm telling you, okay, here's what you're going to do this week. And it's all based around the different journeys of the book. And so for people who are looking for a more guided experience, because often what you find is people read a book and go, that's a good idea, but don't apply it.
Yeah.
Yep. And so if again, this may not be your target market, but for those who do want a more guided experience, I've got where I literally will guide you through the whole thing.
I like that. Yeah. Look, honestly, I believe there will be, because it's not just instructors that are listening. There's instructors, managers, gym owners that are tuning into the podcast as well now. So I'm sure.
And if you want to get the course, go to passionaboutexercise.com, and that's the main page for the book. But to the top right, it's got get the course.
Sweet.
Yeah,
mate.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I wanted to ask you a question on that. When you sit down and you're doing your half-hour reflection on Sundays, where are you?
What I do is I do it here, but I try to create a cool environment.
Yep.
So there's a real process. So what I do is I read my goals.
If this is part of the course, don't share it.
No, mate, I'll share it. No, so for me, first thing I do is I make a hot drink.
Yep.
I open my curtains. I'm very lucky. I've got a beautiful view of my office, so I can go and just look at the view. Put some really awesome music on. So I try to create a real comfort experience.
Yep.
Then I read my goals. Then I read my objectives from last week. Because what each week of my life should be progressing me towards my goals. So for example, I had a goal this year. I'm in a band. I had a goal of releasing an album.
Awesome.
So we released an album this year. Now we're trying to build our fan base.
Yep.
So my goal right now is to build our fan base to a certain number. So then this week, with the 4 hours of work that I have for my band, what's my objectives that are going to help me move that forward? So I look at my goals, then I go, in the different areas of my life, what are my objectives? So for my band this week, in the 4 hours, I'm going to do a bit more work on a project we're doing that's trying to build our fan base. With my partner, I'm going to make sure that on Friday, we're going to do this amazing connection thing. So in each area, I'm just writing objectives out. Then I literally will do my plan. So then I literally get my calendar out, plan out my week.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of the process. And then in the morning, what I do is I wake up, I read my goals again, I put some cool music on, I read my objectives for the week, and I literally will get a piece of paper and just write down my objectives on my piece of paper and then work through my day based on that. So it's quite anal, I know, but it just works.
It lands, mate. It's how did you learn to do that? Where does that skill set come from?
Just evolution. Just over time, I love this idea of how often do you go to bed 100% satisfied with your day? And the satisfying day is you wake up in the morning and you just make great decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
So you train and you train well. You eat well. You're productive. You're not wasting time on social media. When you connect with people. Yeah, and you go to bed that night and you're like, man, I smashed today.
Yeah.
And if you were to put a percentage on that, what would be your percentage?
Yeah.
And then the second question is that a fluke or is that something you create?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for me, these tools mean I create a day where most of the time I go to bed 100% satisfied with my day.
Yeah.
And you just learn so much about yourself through this. Like the other thing I learn is I learn what I can't fit in a week.
Yeah.
So I never get stressed because I've overloaded myself because I know, hey, you can't get all this done this week.
Yeah.
So why would you even try? Because I've just learned what's realistic for me.
Yeah.
So I never overload myself to a point where I actually create unnecessary stress. So you just learn through the process of the tools. But yeah, I just love this idea of, can I create the day that I want to live today? And through these tools, more often than not, I can.
This is the Group X podcast.
What does the future hold for you? What are your plans for, say, the next 6 to 12 months?
You know what? I'm at a real crossroads in life right now, actually, because I feel it's a moment of change. Les Mills is fading. Yep. Anyone who comes across you 10 years from now, I'll still be teaching. I'll be that guy.
Yep.
But the higher level stuff is fading, and I've known that for a long time. So it's actually, I don't know, but it's nervous and exciting.
Yeah.
Because my wife and I have both talked about how we want to start to create some change, and we're in a good position in life where we can make those choices without too much stress.
Yep.
And so it's a little bit uncertain, I'm going to be honest.
Awesome.
There will always be an aspect of my life trying to help people have exercise.
Yeah.
And probably a big aspect of my life trying to help people have exercise. I probably work too hard. So I think my wife and I, we both work really hard. And one of the downfalls of not having kids, my daughter's like an adult now, is you can get away with working too hard.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we also love it.
Yeah.
So you can justify it, but I think we want to kind of broaden what life looks like.
Yeah.
So if anything, it's kind of, I don't necessarily know.
Yeah.
I kind of know what will be around.
Yeah.
And I trust that I'll make good decisions around that. But if anything, it's a nervous and exciting time.
Yeah. I watch this space. I like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Last question I want to throw at you is, what bit of advice can you give to an instructor that might be listening who wants to improve on what they're currently doing in the way of teaching or presenting or whatever it is?
Yeah. Okay. Self-reflection. Filming doesn't lie. When I go back to my start, I would film every week. It just doesn't lie. And people don't film enough.
Yeah.
It's self-reflection. I guarantee if you film your class, even just once a month, you'll become a better instructor. That's really important. Feedback, the obvious stuff. Okay. So, but probably the most important thing is a commitment.
Yep.
The thing that often happens in Les Mills is, here's what happens in Les Mills. People come along, they have this life-changing experience, and for the first period, they work like beasts. They work like crazy because they're worried about not being good enough. And then what happens is they get a base level of skill, which means they do a good job. And then what happens is kind of laziness creeps in. Because I know I can do my job good enough.
Yep.
And to me, probably the most important thing is, if you do want to improve, is what's your process and commitment to doing the work. So if you want to improve, are you going to commit an hour each week to become a better instructor? Because filming and feedback is going to give you the answers of what you need to improve on. But if you don't put the hour aside, you aren't going to improve.
You're not going to.
So it's actually probably the biggest piece of advice is, what's your process and the time you're going to commit to improve. And even like for me, admittedly, I don't do that nowadays. I don't necessarily go to that level of trying to get better. But what I will do is, when I'm learning my choreo, I always just try to pick up on one thing I'm going to try to improve on, maybe a new cue or something like that.
Yep.
So I do self-assess, but maybe not as much. I'm in a different part of my career, but for those people who are more younger, and probably, and this is probably a different note, but if you're trying to make it in the industry and go higher level, become a bloody good networker. Yeah. Build the right relationships.
Ain't that true?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I remember, now you couldn't do this nowadays, but this is before social media. I sent a video of myself to Brett Field saying, "Can you assist my class?"
Yep.
And he did. And this is what, because I knew I wanted him to know me.
Yeah.
Like your job, opportunity goes to people who know.
Yeah.
Like I always think in life, it's your job to put your hand up for opportunity. Like I remember when I first started, I always thought, if I work hard, people will notice me.
Yep.
And that's important as well. But you've also got to say, hey, I'm over here.
Yeah.
And so building good relationships is really important.
Yeah. Awesome. Bevan, thank you so much for coming on the show and spending some time with me, mate. I've greatly appreciated
I really enjoyed it.
Getting to know you a lot better, and I'm sure my guests are going to enjoy that little bit of an insight as well. And especially with regards to the book, mate, good luck with that. And I hope some of my listeners jump on board. And guys, if you are jumping on board, let me know as well. I'd love to know who's on there. But mate, thank you.
Thanks for having me too as well. You're doing a great job with this. I love your focus, and I love what you're trying to do here. And you've got a really good presence. So thank you for your time.